What up, guys? It's Lance back with another interview. Before we start, make sure you like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. But today we have Kyle O'Brien. This is the longest resume that I've had, but it's absolutely awesome. So strap in, guys. This is so awesome. Kyle O'Brien, he graduated from Schlarman High School, which is in Danville, Illinois, in 1998. He was a Class A All-State in cross country and track. He was third in the 32 and eighth in the 16. DACC, which is Danville Area Community College. That's a two-year school. He was a multiple-time region champ and a multiple-time National Junior College All-American. And attended Eastern Illinois University in 2003. That's where he graduated. 15-time O'Valley Conference champion, 6-team, 9-individual, NCAA All-District, and after that, he ran professionally. He was a USA Olympic trials qualifier in the marathon, Team USA selection for the 2007 Track and Field World Championship team. He got 32nd. He was 18th in the 2006 Boston Marathon, 16th in the 2006 Chicago Marathon, third in the 2004 Detroit Marathon. He was introduced into the National Junior College Athletics Hall of Fame in 2008, introduced into the DACC Hall of Fame in 2008, introduced into EIU's Hall of Fame in 2012, introduced in the Greater Alina Sports Hall of Fame in 2021, an introduction into the Schlarman Academy Wall of Fame in 2024. His post-running career, he began working in law enforcement in 2010 for the city of Danville, promoted to sergeant in 2016, promoted to commander in 2019, promoted to lieutenant in 2021, appointed and graduated from the 289th session of the FBI National Academy for Law Enforcement Executives in 2024. Okay, now that that's over, that's awesome. I was struggling to read that. There was just so much. But how's your day been?
Oh, it's been good. Honestly, just from texting with you over the last couple of days trying to plan this, and then we finally nailed down this morning it was going to be tonight. I've just been kind of looking forward to it all day. Had the day off work, just kind of lounged around all day and been waiting to talk to you.
So you have done a lot of great things, and I'm so excited to dive into all of those. But we do cover running, so I do want to start with running. What got you into your running career?
So yeah, the best way to describe that is by accident. I didn't grow up around running. There's not a lot of runners in my family. Didn't run in grade school or junior high. My freshman year of high school, as you can imagine, with I think I was 5'3", 100 pounds. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. Probably makes perfect sense. And they wanted us all to run cross country and do a fall sport for conditioning. And so I went out for cross country my freshman year of high school and absolutely hated it. I think I just did the conditioning part, didn't really put a whole lot of effort into the meets, and the coach was kind enough to tell me I didn't have to go to meets anymore after about 3 or 4 meets of the season. He just knew I hated it that much, but he also kind of knew, he was the assistant basketball coach at the time. He knew basketball wasn't going to be my thing, and he could see whatever he could see at the time. He saw I had some kind of hidden talent for endurance running, so he just kind of let me go, and he'd check in with me every once in a while. I didn't run track at all that spring, didn't run cross country the next fall, and then following that next spring, I was ready to get into running again and take it a little more seriously, and started running track again my sophomore year of high school. So that's really when I got into it, was sophomore year of high school, and that carried over into cross country my junior year of high school, and really started to appreciate the sport for what it is, and realize that it was something that I could excel at, and actually eventually once I matured a little bit, really enjoyed doing.
Something that I feel like I hear in common almost every time, because I love to start with that question, kind of get a background. I hear almost every single time, I hated running first year. I think that's quite common, and I feel like people are obligated to hate running when they first started.
I think there's something to that. I think you're absolutely right.
So you started at a very small school. What was some of the things that you did as an athlete that kind of propelled you to be able to be better? I know that sounds really weird, but you said you weren't very good when you started, but then you all stayed in cross country and track from a very small school. Schlarman is class 1A at the time, which is the smallest classification in Illinois. What uh what helped you get better as a runner?
So we had, or I should say, I was very fortunate in that I had some local area teams that were really good at the time. We were part of the Illini Central Conference. So your dad's team, when he was running for St. Joe, they were in the ICC as well. So they were obviously very good. Oakwood High School was very good at the time. They were in the conference as well. And the members on those teams, as well as their coaches, Jim Acklin, obviously, Ray Whitman, the coach for Oakwood, they kind of saw the same kind of thing that my coach saw, and that I was this kind of one-man operation at Schlarman, didn't really know what I was doing. My coach was a great fan, but he was always picking their brains as far as what kind of workouts the other guys were doing. And they were great about just kind of pulling me along with them. They'd let me come over to St. Joe and run with the team every once in a while, or let me go to Oakwood and run with the team every once in a while. So it was really a combination of the coaches and the other athletes in East Central Illinois at the time, just kind of being submersed in that culture that I wasn't familiar with. I just had a lot of great people to learn from. And, it's the kind of thing that a rising tide lifts all ships. So, there were so many great runners that were going through St. Joe and Oakwood and Hoopson at the time that they just kind of let me tag along, and I ended up right up there at the top with them.
I think that's awesome. And some of the things that one of the conversations that me and my dad have repeatedly is that people like to hide their training. We don't. We think we don't think it's terrible to hide it, but like we just don't. If we're here to try to help everyone we can. And if you want to know what we did for the week, we'll tell you every run we did for the week and each detail you want to know. And we think that's really important. We're not trying to just help ourselves get better. We're trying to help everyone get better, right? That's one of the main reasons I do this. That's one of the main reasons I love doing this, is trying to help other people with their knowledge. And I'm blessed that you came on here. You're substantially smarter than me. I'm surprised I'm even cool enough to talk to you. You were awesome enough to come on tonight. And so again, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, man. I don't want you to downplay what it is that you're doing and the platform that you've got right now. And that's one of the coolest things about it. You just nailed it. What you and your dad always talk about. I mean, back when we were in high school and college, there wasn't a whole lot of available information out there about training. So the fact that I had coaches and teams in the area that were willing to share that kind of stuff with me and my coach, it was invaluable to me in my career. And you've got a completely other platform right now where you're just trying to reach out and get in touch with as many people as you can and get all of this information out there. So people that people that are probably in the same situation I was in can come to your channel and find good coaching information as well. So thank you for what you do. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
It's awesome getting to learn from other people and their experiences, because everyone is unique in its own. And that's one of my favorite things. Is I say this repeatedly almost every interview. One of my favorite things about doing interviews is that I will ask them about what was some of your high school training like. If they're like in their 30s or something, they're like, oh man, I didn't think you'd ask me that. I have to go back and think about that. So I think it's awesome seeing the reflection on what they had. And I think it's something that's really important to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one of my questions to you is what was your thought process when you were in this small school situation? Like what was kind of your thoughts? Did you think you had the opportunity to be good before you were blessed to be able to run with all these other cool people and stuff like that? What was kind of your thought process?
So I think when I was at that stage in my career, it was the kind of thing that one of the best things for me was that I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be as fast as maybe some of these other guys were. I just knew who Adam Marriott was and that he was a really good runner for St. Joe. And I knew that who Ryan Wells was and that he was a really good runner for Oakwood. And it was like, okay, well, those are the really good runners. Those are the ones that I need to try and keep up with. And so for me, it was just kind of the competitive nature and not necessarily the knowledge about the sport. When I was relatively early in my running career, I used to do a lot of my runs with the Kennecott Road Runners, and Coach Acklin was a big part of them. He was at every single summer race that I ever showed up to because he always ran for the Kennecott Road Runners, and he was one of the guys that even outside of the stuff that the advice he would give me during the season, he'd always find me at these races and just make sure that I was in the right mindset and had a good idea of what my capabilities were for that day, and just really taught me at a young age to not be afraid to go out there and butt heads with some people, even though they might be a little more experienced and a little more accomplished than I was.
So for what you said, Coach Acklin, for what he would tell you in season, what were some of the things that not only Coach Acklin told you, but what was the name from the Oakwood coach that you stated?
Coach Ray Whitman, he coached, yeah, he coached Oakwood for several years. One of the best pieces of advice that I think Coach Acklin ever gave me, and it's funny because him and I have always had this. I mean, even to this day, we have this same kind of relationship, and I'm sure you've seen him interact with, maybe your dad the same way, or even some of the guys on your team. But I don't know if you know this, but he likes to talk a little bit of trash, and
He does.
especially back when he was competitive, when I was in high school, Coach Acklin was probably my age right now, and I can't run nearly as fast right now as Coach Acklin was when he was in his early 40s. So, we'd always get into a race, and we'd always end up right around each other.
Well, you said that taught you some things during the season. What were kind of some of the things that Coach Acklin and Coach Whitman taught you, and some of the things that stayed with you?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that they each did for me, and they both kind of had their own ways of going about doing it, is just instilling that confidence that even though I wasn't officially a part of either one of their teams, that I belonged. And one great Ackland story I always like to share is that we were running a race. It was right at the end of right at the end of the summer before my junior year, so right before cross country season started. It was a little 5K here in Danville, and we were going back and forth like we usually did it about that time. I hadn't gotten quite good enough yet that I was able to beat him with any kind of regularity. And we got late in the race, and I had had a plan in my mind that I was going to put in a hard move with about a half mile to go, and just kind of blow his doors off, and that'd be the end of it. No big deal. And that time never came. I didn't even try and put in the move because I felt that bad. He ended up beating me by maybe 5 or 10 seconds. We were running like 16 mids, but he came up to me afterwards, and you know, obviously talking a little bit of trash, but trying to teach me a lesson too. He asked me how I felt out there, and I just told him that I felt really bad. The game plan for the race really didn't go how I wanted it to. I thought I would have another move in me during the last mile, and really thought I was going to be able to get him that day. And he's like, we've run together a lot, and I've watched you run a lot. He said, I really want you to know I had already made peace with myself during that last mile, that if you put in one more move, I was going to give up. I wasn't even going to try and go with you. He said, I felt that bad. He said, but I knew you never put that move on, so I put on a move of my own, and I never felt great, but I just dropped you. He said, so just remember, when you're in these situations in any race, it doesn't matter if you're going for the winner, if you're just trying to beat somebody else, win that moment. He said, make that move, because what's the worst that's going to happen? You're not going to feel good, and the guy's going to beat you anyway. But what's the best that's going to happen? That guy probably feels just as bad as you do, and you might just put the nail in the coffin by making that move. And like I said, I was 16 years old at the time, and that just kind of turned a light bulb on for me that there's always going to be that race within the race, and there's a good chance that whoever you're running next to at that time of the race probably feels just as bad, if not worse, than you do. So make them hurt a little bit worse. Same kind of thing with Coach Whitman. I mean, he was always just a big just a big team guy as far as Oakwood went. He always tried to, pump up their team culture, and that they were doing all this stuff together. But he made sure that I wasn't going to be the only person by myself watching these guys warm up or cool down, or wondering what I should do before or after a race, because he knew I didn't have that team culture. So he was always the one that came up and got me, made sure that, I was going to be warming up with their guys or cooling down with their guys after the race. And just, it was a real neat dynamic between all of those teams and myself for those couple years, my junior and senior year, because we always competed against each other, but we always got together before and after the races. We genuinely enjoyed being around each other, but we still wanted to run each other into the dirt during the race. So
I love that ACC story. I do believe he said that before. And I mean, ACC, he's just the best. He's got so many stories, and you could just listen to him for hours and hours. And I do believe I remember that one. I think that's what he told me actually after my state meet, and I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that was it. So like I said, you were blessed to be very good in high school, but you even stepped it up even more in college. You went to DACC originally, which like I said in the beginning is a 2-year. And what was kind of your thought process? Did you always wanted to go to a JUCO, or were you wanted to go to a 4-year?
So for me, it made the most sense for me to go to DACC. Obviously, being from Danville, you always knew what DACC was about, and you knew they had a good running program, and that Coach Hill was just a great guy, and Coach Orvis and Coach Weaver, they were very they were in contact with me a lot my junior and senior year of college or high school, just let me know that I had a place at DACC if I wanted to go there. And on top of that, coming from a small school and just, barely having my feet wet as far as training and racing goes, I felt like I still needed to grow up quite a bit as a person and as an athlete before I went to a 4-year or a Division I school. And I just felt like DACC was going to be the best place for me to do that. And I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I had such a great experience for the 2 years there, and was able to ease into my training a little bit more. I was a very, very undertrained guy in high school. Like I said, we were just kind of stumbling through the seasons, trying to figure out how to be successful and what I could do to run fast. So going to a junior college after that, I was able to bump my training up a little bit, be around a little more just running knowledge, and obviously have bigger teams there than I ever was on in high school. And so it was just a very nice logical step for me. And on top of that, I didn't there weren't a lot of Division I schools or 4-year schools that were looking at me out of high school either. So it made a lot of sense for me to go to DACC.
I got you. So what were some of the things that you learned at DACC that you took to a 4-year university?
So for me, it was just kind of gradually adapting both my mileage and intensity. Like I said, I was at such a young training age when I even started college that I just really didn't know how to do it. And so I kind of moved along really slowly as far as building that mileage. There was a lot of guys that showed up and, thought we were in college now, so they were going to be running 80 or 90 miles a week, even though they hadn't been anywhere near that in high school. But I couldn't do that. I only ran 25 miles a week in high school. So when I got to DACC, even the jump from 25 miles a week to even, 60 or 70 miles a week, that was a pretty big jump for me. So I just had to learn how to ease my way into it and let my body make those adaptations. So by the time I left DACC, I had increased my load, that I was going to be ready to take another step when I went to Eastern. And a big thing for me that I didn't do at all in high school, but I started to do when I was at DACC was my long runs were 90 minutes to 2 hours every time. And that was just something that I had never done before. And it's almost as soon as I started doing long runs like that, you could see a big jump in my training and racing performance. So that was something I carried with me through the rest of my career. That was kind of one of the very first signs for me anyway, that even the 5,000 and 10,000 meters that you do on the track in college wasn't going to be my best distance. Like, it still needed to climb from there, and that I was probably going to end up in the marathon someday.
I got you. So while at EIU, I do want to share the story. I know you know it, but for our viewers, it's my favorite story of you. My favorite loop to run every year. I get to run it one time every year. It's the Panther Prowl at camp last day. It's, for those of you unaware, it's a 15K loop, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's my favorite loop. And you have the record for the fastest 15K on the Panther Prowl, and it's not, for those of you who are not aware or ever ran one, it's not an easy flat. It's not an easy flat. It's a lot of fun though. But when you broke that record, every time we go on, I've only done it twice, but we still talk about it throughout the year. My dad was leading through 5K, and then you absolutely blew by it, is what he said. And so he said every time he tried to run the legs off you somehow, and he didn't do that. And I love that story, and I think it's hilarious. So a little bit of poking the bear at my dad, but I love that story, and I think it's hilarious. So I definitely wanted to share. But that brings me into my next one. What
Okay, I've never done this in any of his, but everybody else went easy through 3 miles, as you know, but I didn't because I didn't have a chance. So back to the
first Jason Russ interview.
I like it. I'm here for it.
So you were blessed to be very successful. I mean, all district, multiple time college champion. What was some of the things that you learned while at EIU to help you really grow as an athlete? Because you just kept progressing and progressing and progressing. How did you keep doing that?
So Eastern was a game changer for me, and that all started with Coach Mack. I never really had Eastern on my radar at all. You know, we run our state meet there in high school, and it's fine. You go there, you run on the track, but I didn't really think about going to college there. At the time when I was wrapping up at DACC, I was looking at Tennessee and Purdue were my two big schools that were really recruiting me pretty hard and made me some decent offers, as well as Miami University and Western Michigan, and then Eastern was the fifth school that I was looking at. And just Coach Mack. I mean, he just has a way, and he's not only was he a great coach, but he's probably the best person I've ever met in my life, and just kind of genuinely cares about the individual as a person and not just another number on the team. And just, I mean, his attitude and then the history behind the program. I mean, I was sold from, just sitting down and talk to him. It didn't have anything to do about the campus. I knew a lot of the guys that were on the team already, and I knew that I'd probably fit in pretty well, but it was Coach Mack for me. And so he was a life changer for me, and he still is. He's a good friend of mine to this day. I still talk to him quite often. And he's just been a role model my entire life. Now, as far as the running aspect goes, the other very interesting thing that we had on our team at Eastern at the time, although we didn't realize it then, was the amount of running careers and running success that were going to come out of that small group of guys that we were with. I mean, you've interviewed John Sipple and Andy Dirks in the past, and I think you've spoken with Danny Mackey as well. I mean, those are three very, very high level coaches right there that were on the same team. And then you've got Jeff Janitis, who also qualified for the Olympic trials in the marathon, and Danny Mackey, who qualified for the Olympic trials in the marathon. There was a wealth of very good running minds and just great people that we just got along like I can't even describe. And so it was just the right place at the right time, I think. And we all learned from each other, and it wasn't the kind of thing where it was anybody just assumed they were going to be the number one runner all the time or the number 5 runner all the time. Like, we were just out there trying to make each other better. And that was kind of one of the best things that Coach Mack, I think, ever taught me, was once you take your eyes off yourself and start thinking about how you can make your teammates better, you're going to make improvements that nobody ever would have seen coming, because you're not worrying about your own performance anymore. You're worrying about the greater good of the group. And so that, I always try and tell people the kind of training that you do is going to be pretty similar everywhere. There's obviously certain things that some schools do differently, or certain mileage that people run differently. And obviously, I was a higher mileage guy by the time my career at Eastern ended, and then I built on that. But that's not really what got me the success, and that's not really what got anybody on our team the success. I think it was just the amount that we actually cared about each other, and that's what helped us through some of the diversity that we faced. And we were never going to be any world beaters, even to this day we still aren't, but we were just a kind of a great group of guys that loved each other and loved the sport, and just, God, we just had the best time doing it.
That's awesome. And I know all those groups of guys that you listed, and I just think it's crazy. Like, thinking of, like, what you said is absolutely true. For those of you unaware, Coach Sipple, he's qualified for an X in back-to-back years. His team just got, I believe, 7th. They're awesome. Coach Dirks, he qualified for an X in the first time this year, and he is so young. And so he has got a lot of improvement coming his way. And then Coach Mackey was the last one. He said, Coach Mackey, he's Brooks Beast head coach. You may have heard of Josh Kerr. Yeah, that's his coach. Like he said, the groups of guys that came out of EIU during that time were absolutely awesome. And you, like you said, right place, right time. And so that honestly brings me to my next question. Obviously, look at all those guys I just listed, just to name a few of them, right? And then you have Jeff Denias, Jason Retz. Like, you have so many guys that were just insanely smart running guys now. I mean, it was a weird question, but were they that smart then, or what did you guys learn from each other?
Well, I think, yes, 100% they were that smart then. And that's kind of the cool thing about it, is obviously you keep picking up things as you go over time, but every one of those guys that we just mentioned, one thing is they all came from great programs themselves, and so they were bringing knowledge from their high school programs into the fold there at Eastern. And you know, with myself and your dad as well, we were also bringing knowledge that we brought from DACC into the fold there at Eastern. So I think when you get just that many, you know, good running minds around each other that have a great leader in Coach Mack already, and then bring these little bits and pieces that we brought from either high school or the college that we were at before Eastern, good things are going to happen. And anybody that wanted to, you know, the funny thing is, even if you don't have these, you know, Olympic trials qualifiers or whatever, every person from that team that wanted to pursue running after college still improved in some way, shape, or form, because as a group, we just kind of weren't done yet. There was a lot of unfinished business. We would have loved to have qualified for NCAAs as a team and made some noise that way. We did a lot of good stuff, but there was a lot of fire still left in a lot of these guys when they graduated from Eastern. And that's why you see, you know, three of us that had qualified for the Olympic trials in the marathon. I think Jason Bielka and Dan Stracklejohn both ran Olympic trials qualifying times in the 1500. Todd Maroney, who was a guy 3 years ahead of me, ran an Olympic trials qualifying time in the steeplechase. And, you know, this is all from this very tiny school here in Charleston, Illinois. And you don't get that kind of stuff everywhere. So it's just, you know, all of the running knowledge was there. All of those great running minds existed. The competitiveness existed, and it was just it was really a perfect storm for me anyway. I can't speak for anybody else in that group, but that was my feeling the entire time that I was there, and I look back fondly on it because of that.
I'll tell you what, you just summed it up perfectly. And what you said was spot on. You this tiny town, Charleston, Illinois. I mean, that's tiny, but there's like 12,000 people, I believe. It's not where you have to be going to Charleston for a reason, is essentially
Right.
what to say that as. And to have this tiny school, it's a Division I school, but it's smaller into Division I. Like they've won national titles in cross country. Sure was in the 70s, but they've won national titles in cross country, multiple national
Yeah.
qualifiers, like recently too. I just think it's awesome that this tiny school is still thriving at the NCAA level. And it's not only that, at the Division I level. And I think that's absolutely awesome. And you guys kind of started it. Like what we've been talking about is like there has to be someone to break the barrier of it's possible. And your group were part of that. And I think that's absolutely awesome for you guys.
Yeah, that's definitely a fun thing to think about and to talk about. And you know, I know several of the guys that were on those national championship teams in the 70s. Coach Mack was one of them that was on those teams. I mean, they had an amazing culture back then, and just it continued through. And a lot of those guys stayed close to the program, so they were still around when we were running there, and we always had great role models to look up to. And you know, I'm not saying that anybody in my group has been a great role model for any of the people that are there right now, but the history of that program speaks for itself. And that's why you see guys like the Swansons and the Hatfields and those guys that have been just destroying every one of our times, you know, over the last couple of years. I mean, these guys are next level now. And that's a tribute to all the guys that came through behind them.
Yeah. And I think it's only going to get better. They have a great young recruiting class that have come in, and it sounds like they have even better ones coming in. And so we're really,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to watching them. I mean, we're close. I know they got some big opening meet this weekend. I'm definitely going to go down and watch. And so I'm really excited for that. And I do want to say that one of my favorite weeks of the year is camp week. You definitely got to participate in some camps. I absolutely love camp. It is
Oh
so
yeah.
fun. You get to learn so much and make so many friends. And like we have still a group chat from camp of all like the big group of guy friends that were there, and we still talk in that actively. And I think that's awesome because we're at meets, we're like, hey, who's gonna be at this meet? Who's gonna be at this meet? And so
Absolutely.
I think that's awesome. How did you like camp? If you didn't like it, you're crazy.
Oh no, I mean that was so for us, you know, that was one of our favorite weeks of the year too. And anybody that could get back for it, it kind of kept everybody accountable for what you were doing over the summer. And you know, you knew you were going to see all your teammates for that week and get to help out and be a counselor at camp. So it's number one fun because we get to see all you young guys and see people that are just coming up and are going to be the next ones that are coming through Eastern. And then you get to see your regular teammates and make sure that everybody's been doing the work off season. And then obviously the Panther Prowl at the end of the week is, you know, that race is always going to be near and dear to my heart. I'll never run as fast as I did in 2001 or whenever that was, but it's still fun to get out there even now, you know, come back and run it very slowly as an old guy and just remember, you know, all the times that we've been out there on those routes and just running together on a daily basis. And it's just Charleston and Eastern is just a place that's full of great memories for me. And EIU distance camp, I truly believe is unlike any other running camp in the country, and nobody would understand it if they hadn't been there, but it really is something special.
100%. Like, sounds crazy to say, right? Well, the school probably most people have never heard of. Like, what's so awesome about the running camp? Go. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
go.
Try it out,
and you will not regret it. This is an advertisement. Go. So you weren't done in college. You had the blessing of being able to run professionally. You freaking qualified for the world championship team in the marathon. Like, that's awesome. What was your professional experience and career like?
So, yeah, again, I mean, as far as even the idea to run professionally and get a sponsorship and get hooked up with one of these Olympic development teams, that was really just kind of a brand new concept, and it wasn't something that was really on my radar when I first went to Eastern. And then the more that I progressed, Coach Mack and I would sit down and we'd have these weekly meetings, and I think he really thought it was annoying at first because nobody ever bothered him that much. But once I got to Eastern, I don't know what it was, if I was still trying to learn or still trying to make sure that I was doing all the right things. But I'd schedule a meeting with him every single week, and the further I got into my career there, it was you know, it's time for you to really start thinking about this. You haven't even barely touched your potential yet. You're more than welcome to stick around here and keep training. He said, you know, his exact words were, but I think we may have gotten everything we can get out of you here. If you can get on with one of these teams and be with 10 or 15 guys that are better than you and coaches that know how to coach at the professional level, even if you have to scrape by working part-time jobs or on a small contract or whatever you have to do, it's going to be worth it because you're never going to have to wonder if you could have done it. Yep. And that was, again, some of the best advice that he ever gave me. So going into my senior year there, I had redshirted the outdoor track season the spring before, which again was Coach Mack's plan because I was already going to have cross country and indoor my senior year. So we decided to redshirt outdoor so we could have all 3 seasons. And throughout the course of that redshirt season, I kind of stalked one of the professional teams that I wanted to run for and just made sure that because I was healthy and training still, I just made sure I kept showing up at the races they were at. And fortunately got noticed by Kevin Hanson, and he started reaching out to Coach Akers and Coach Mack shortly after that. He didn't realize that I still had another full year of eligibility. So I made that contact, like I said, right at the end of my redshirt year, and stayed in contact with those guys for the following year, and then moved up there the summer after I graduated. And it was just, I mean, you talk about eye-opening. I'm there with guys that had already qualified for the Olympic trials or world championships, or you know, still to this day, one of my best friends that I lived with when I first moved up there, and one of the guys I was closest with for the 7 years that I ran with him, Brian Sell, was our first Olympian in 2007. And I mean, I was just getting run into the dirt every single day there because, you know, again, it's just a level that I hadn't trained or raced at before, and it took me a while to adapt to that. And it was, you know, running higher mileage than I ever had before. But luckily, it eventually just kind of came around and everything fell into place for me.
That kind of reminds me of my last male interview, AJ Acosta. If you guys haven't watched that, go out and watch that. He did a great job. Talks about his experience, and he's really freaking good. He had the school record at Oregon in the 1500 for a while. Go watch that. it reminds me of the story that he told me. He won Foot Locker, so he was the number one recruit in the country for overall. So he visited Wisconsin, Stanford, and Oregon and Colorado. And so he went up to Wisconsin and he ran with oh shoot, I'm blanking on his name now. I all I remember is he was an Olympian, and so he was on nice recovery run for him. And so he was like, "Are you sure not going too fast?" He says he thinks they're going like low six, right around 6:15 pace, and he's like, "No, it's just a training run for me. I'll be all right." And he said that is the most humbling experience of my life. And so I'm not saying you were being humbled or anything, because you are genuinely humble, and that's awesome. And I just think it reminded me of that story, and I figured I'd like to share that.
Yeah, no, it's you don't, again, I've probably said this two or three times, but you don't know what you don't know. And going from the situation that I was in at Eastern, where, we kind of all just took care of each other a little bit more on the recovery days, and didn't not every single day was a race. And then you get it's a little bit different when you're doing it at the professional level, and your fitness is your paycheck, and it's a little more cutthroat. And honestly, it was an eye-opening experience for me. I was running, from the time I got up there, I was probably running 115, 120 miles a week. And I think I got up there in July, and by November I had 2 stress fractures. Had to take quite a bit of time off and really recover, because I got in way over my head, and didn't do it in the right way. So, learning experience, and I didn't get to make my impact the way that I wanted to in the time that I wanted to, but ended up paying off in the long run. I was able to ease back into training, and by the time I'd been there for about a year, almost a year and a half, was when I made my marathon debut. And that's when that was Detroit. That was when I got third at Detroit, and that fell after the Olympic trials that year. The Olympic trials were in February. Detroit was in October. So it didn't count as an Olympic trials qualifier at the time. The window wasn't open yet for the next Olympic trials, but it was just a very, very positive experience, and everything kind of built on that one.
Yeah. I'm glad that you shared kind of your experience that you had there, because like I said, you literally just kept getting better and better. And honestly, you don't see that as often now. And it's honestly kind of rare to see these kids that were all staters in high school, um, all conference champions in college, go up and even make a next step even after that. And it's not a gradual line, obviously, but you were blessed to just keep going up. Sure, you had those dips, like you said, you had those two stress factors. What were kind of the things that you did to help recover? Because I know what we are, the biggest thing that we've learned as a team, I'd say, over the past 2 years, is easy days easy. I remember
Mhm.
days where it used to be like 6:20s to 6:30s, and that's just like, looking back on it now, I was like, no. And it really helps us get a higher volume as well. And I mean, more you run, the better you are. It's just that simple. And
Absolutely.
but safely to an extent, and honestly, I find myself enjoying it more. We're having awesome conversations. I mean, it's easy. We're just chilling, running 7:20 for an hour, and I really enjoy
Yep.
that. And I don't know about you, but that was recovery days are my favorite, because I get to go talk to my best friends for an hour. And so, sorry, I got off track. But like
Yep.
I said, what
That was honestly one of the biggest things for me, and how I had to adapt to training up there. And that's how, fortunately for me, I was able to continue and make a couple more of those jumps. Is I learned really quickly once I moved up there that I had to plan my easy days, because the hard days were always going to be there. You're training with 15 or 20 of the best guys in the country, that are all trying to make these same national teams and Olympic teams, and you name it. So there's always going to be somebody that wants to run hard. The hard days are always going to be there. So you really had to plan your easy days and your recovery. And ultimately, that's what helped me. Was there were days when these guys would finish their runs every single day, between 5:30 and 6-minute pace, and that just wasn't the way I was going to develop. So I had to let them go, and I had to plan my days when I was going to run that hard, but I had to really plan my days when I was going to run easy, and it allowed me to get my mileage up. I ended up being one of the higher mileage guys on the team, and that's just what always worked for me was running high mileage, running most of it at an easy pace, and then, planning your workouts around that.
I probably one of my favorite quotes that has been said on the vlog is by a guy named Michael Mariano. He's running at the University of Gonzaga now. He's very successful in high school, and I would definitely say sticks with me today. I tell everyone there's no such thing as overtraining. It's just under recovering. I had never heard that before, and it is brilliant. And
Yeah.
and it's absolutely true. My strength teacher, he's a pretty smart guy. He says that it's all it is break and repair, break and repair. That's all it is. And I just like learning the science of running. It's not just go out and run. And it's just crazy how deep of a rabbit hole you can get yourself into. And so
Absolutely.
and it gets a lot of fun, honestly, once you get into the sport and kind of get the knowledge of it. And yeah, I think I love learning about it. I'm grateful you get to talk to me today. I mean, I get to talk to you. Wow. That sounded really mean. I misspoke. But so even after pros, you had you weren't done yet. You became a police officer in 2010 for the city of Danville. Is that something you had always wanted to do, or is that something that kind of you're just like, you know what, let's go give this a shot?
So yeah, that's kind of the funny thing is, I was very lucky to, um, again, a lot of my career has been being in the right place at the right time, and just being surrounded with really good people that helped me get to the next level. And to be able to run professionally for a few years was amazing. The Olympic trials and all that was, and the world championships, those were fantastic experiences, but it can't last forever, right? At that time I was 29 years old and just not recovering the way that I used to. I was having a hard time coming back from races or performing at a level that I was really satisfied with. Trying to compete with these kids that are either still in college or just coming out of college for these, whatever place it might be at the national championships or world championship teams or Olympic trials or whatever. It was time for me to be done. But one of the funny thing is that when I was in high school, when I first started running or first started realizing that I might be good at it and I might be able to compete at the next level, I remember telling pretty much anybody that would listen that two of the things I'd really like to do was run in the Olympics someday for Team USA and then become an FBI agent after I got done with my running career. And I don't bring that up because I didn't accomplish either one of those, but I got pretty damn close to those two avenues. So being able to run in the world championships and wear that Team USA singlet was probably the pinnacle of my running career. And then shortly after that, I knew I wanted to come back home and get into law enforcement. So I moved home in the summer of 2009, and they just by chance had started testing for the Danville Police Department maybe a month after I got home. I mean, I fell right into the process. So and that's like a 3-month process. Testing for them and then getting hired. And I was hired by February of the next year and went into the police academy.
That's absolutely awesome. And like even from there, you just kept getting better and better and better. You kept ranking up, and you just graduated from the FBI National Academy for Law Enforcement. So that's awesome. And so you just said you got close. So does that mean you're not necessarily an FBI agent from graduating from that?
Yeah. So what the FBI National Academy is you get selected by your local field office. So Danville falls under the Springfield field office for the FBI. So basically downstate Illinois, they get to select 2 people from every other law enforcement agency, whether it's a municipality like Danville is or a sheriff's office or anything like that. They kind of headhunt a little bit and select 2 people per class to go out to Quantico, Virginia, and go through this 10-week academy. They put on 4 academies per year, and you just go out there and you train at the FBI Academy with FBI agents and just kind of learn about a lot of things that they do, but also learn a lot a lot more maybe from the other law enforcement executives that you're out there with. So you end up graduating, getting your certification from them, and then bringing all that information back to the law enforcement agency that you still work with. So I'm still a lieutenant at the City of Danville Police Department. Hopefully learned enough from the academy that I was at and from my peers that were out there to bring some very good things back to my agency. And then it helps, if for whatever reason the local FBI agents ever need to reach out to Danville Police Department for something, then they've got a contact already built in there. I've been, like I said, just out there and trained in their academy, and so they already have a built-in person they can reach out to if they need any resources for us, or if my agency happens to need any resources from them. So it's just kind of an additional relationship or an additional resource.
That's absolutely awesome. Congratulations on that. That was very recent. That's 2024, and we are only 3 months in. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's absolutely awesome. But one of the key points that I wanted to cover with you is, now that we've covered all those freaking awesome things that you've done, what are some of the things that you have learned?
Oh man, that's an excellent question. I think for me, one of the things that I learned, whether it was had to do with my running career, how I came up that way, or my law enforcement career, is it's not just about me, and it's really about the people that you surround yourselves with. So there's a quote that I didn't come up with. I heard this a long time ago, but I use it often, and it's that you are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So whether that happens to be your family or your teammates or people that you work with, just make sure that you are focused on being around people that are going to make you better and that you can make better. And as long as you do that, you're going to be just fine.
So you learned a whole bunch, and you just said circle is one of the biggest things that you can have, which you're absolutely right. It's been drilled into my brain from my dad, and maybe he got it from you. But
well, we used to run in the same circles, so it wouldn't surprise me if we both picked it up from the same person at some point in our life.
that very well could be. So you said you that was your biggest learning. What was some of the things that what was your biggest takeaways from not only high school, college, but also professional running? You were blessed to have so many awesome experiences that you got to experience so many different things in many different situations. What were some of your biggest takeaways?
I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had going from running in college to running professionally, you learn real quick that everybody's got their own insecurities, right? So you might show up at your first national championship race as a professional, and again, still be that same guy that was the only person running for your high school, running against these really good teams and wondering if you're supposed to be there. And then you get to know the people that you're running against, and it doesn't matter if it's an Olympian or a national champion or the best person on your team. They're all thinking the same thing, and it's kind of a battle that we fight with ourselves. As you know, and I can't speak for other sports because I'm only a runner. I'm not a basketball player or a baseball player, but it's one of those battles that we fight with ourselves as competitors. Is we're also competing with our own brain, trying to tell us that we can or cannot do something. And if you learn to not negotiate with your mind and just go out there and do what you've trained to do, then you're going to be way more successful, I think, than playing those mind games with yourself.
That's absolutely awesome, and I love that. It's definitely something I need to do better on. That's one of my biggest flaws, I'd say, as a runner. I think I sometimes check out. Like, I check out during a race, and that just can't happen, right? You just got to keep going, keep grinding. And so that kind of brings me to my next question. We have 2 completely different careers here, running and then a police officer. What are some of the things that you brought to running to being a police officer?
One of the things that I've into my agency, and some of the young guys will actually crack jokes because I'm a little more forward with some of the older guys about how they're just not as fit as they ought to be for law enforcement officers is that it's it's something that you have to take with you, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be running, but it's part of our job to maintain fitness and to be able to serve the community that we work for. And it's just a shame when you see people that don't do anything to try and make themselves better or harder to kill, because we're going to be in a situation one day when they're going to need to be harder to kill, and they haven't done anything to work at that. So, what would you do if we're having this interview right now and I told you that you're going to be in the fight of your life on Saturday? Would you think back at how your training went the last couple of weeks? Because I bet you probably would, and you would wish that you'd have done something differently. And so it's that kind of mentality, just from a fitness standpoint. Hopefully it hits home for the guys that need it to hit home, or these younger guys that are still in great shape. Hopefully they can look at somebody that's been there for 15 or 16 years, and I'm not still in great shape, but I'm in decent shape for a mid 40s guy, and hopefully they don't let that slip away.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that's really important, not only as a police officer, but every day in life. Not only can it help you live longer, there's studies show it can make you happier with exercise.
Absolutely.
So you're not done with your police officer career. I'm not saying you are. You still have a lot more to come. For all we know, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, we're doing another interview with you being the president of the United States, for all we know. What has been the biggest thing you have learned as a police officer so far? You've been in the business for now 14 years, which is absolutely awesome. That's a lot of time and a lot of different experiences you might have. What are some of the things that you've learned?
One of the biggest things that I think I've learned in my law enforcement career is that a universal respect goes a long way. I think that sometimes either police officers get a bad rap, or they get this job and become a police officer and think that the only way to do it is to walk onto a scene and start bossing people around and yelling at people and telling them what to do. One thing that I've learned is if you show up on scene and you have to tell somebody that you're the boss, then you're really not the boss. So you've got to kind of find a different way to do that. And part of the ways to do that is just respect everybody that you're dealing with. We deal with people on the absolute worst day of their lives most of the time, and sometimes they just want to get heard out, and they want you to hear what they have to say. And so there's nothing wrong with sitting there and having a very honest conversation with somebody on scene, even though, I may have to tell them something that they don't like to end the conversation. They at least deserve to be heard and respected in that way. And that goes a very long way.
Yeah.
The other thing that
Go ahead. Sorry.
other thing that I think that I learned, that's okay, is every single person, I think, in the agency that I work for, and especially the 200 other law enforcement executives that I was just in the FBI Academy with, does the job in a completely different way, and they all bring something very, very valuable to the table. So again, same way that I think I learned from a lot of my peers through my running career, I'm doing the same thing as a law enforcement officer and a law enforcement executive. I don't know everything. I don't even know close to everything. I still make mistakes every single day, but I'm still surrounding myself with people that can teach me how to do it better and possibly approach the job in a way that I haven't even thought of before. And that's a very fun thing that I'm still learning.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely awesome. What you're saying is some of the similar things that I hear every day, and respect, something that has been drilled into my brain, burned, you name it, it's in there. Tell you the definition. It's something that's been drilled in my brain since I could remember. And what you're saying is absolutely true. Respect for everyone. Both my parents, like, they will tell me you're being disrespectful, and they will chew me out. It's one of the things that goes so far in our house and can get you in very low places in our house. Trust me, I know from experience. Couldn't tell you how many times I've been sent to my room. It's just something that's been drilled in my brain. And I think as you get older, you kind of realize how important that is. And not as saying that you're much older than me, But I mean, you've had a lot more experiences to realize that it really is that important.
Absolutely.
What you're saying, people need to be heard. Like you're saying, it's the last, it could be one of the worst days of their lives. Like I couldn't imagine being in that situation, just having to be bossed around, telling where, hey, you got to go stand over here, go stand by the car, whatever it may be, right? Like they just kind of need to talk. And I think that's something that's really important. So that brings me to the end of my interview, but I like to end on fun, kind of high notes. We're talking at the beginning. Who do you think goes all the way in March Madness? So far, right as we're recording this, round of 32 just ended. We're getting to the Sweet 16, starting Thursday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so we've eliminated some of them. But who do you think going into the Sweet 16 has the best shot taking on the national title?
Well, I know we talked about this earlier, and I'm going to stick with my guns. Let's go Arizona.
Okay.
I think they're taking home the title this year. I think there's a couple other people that could contend, but Arizona's been my pick from day one. So let's do it.
Okay. I like that pick. Final Four team. Unfortunately, they lose to Iowa State, but I mean, it's all right. It's all right. That's a great pick. Caleb Love is an absolute bucket. I love Caleb Love.
I think Iowa State maybe loses to somebody else, but
Who would that be by chance? Um, that also brings me to my next question. What is your favorite dad joke?
oh man, wow, you're gonna put me on the spot with a dad joke.
This is always my favorite one to ask, to just see the wheels trying to turn.
Yeah, man, you're killing me here. My son was out here; he'd probably rattle off about 10 that I've told him in the last 2 weeks. But uh, did your dad ever teach you how to tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
He did.
He did. What is it?
The nose. Crocodile's pointy. Um, and alligator's round.
You're close. One of them you'll see later, but the other one you'll see after a while.
I love that one. I love that one a lot. That's one of my favorite jokes. I actually tell that quite frequently. My teammates are probably tired of it by now, but um I like that one. I'm definitely gonna have to probably start using that one.
All right.
I
What's your
always
favorite?
my favorite one. Um what is something that's orange and bad for your teeth?
I don't know.
A brick. Yeah, like it's like it's so dumb. It's it's so dumb and stupid that it just makes me laugh. Like the stupidest things, like that's what make me laugh the most. And so that's probably my favorite.
Well,
Yeah, I definitely say that one's my favorite.
good
Actually,
deal.
I've never had that one flipped on me, so I'm glad I finally got to get the brick joke out. So I've been asking this one recently, and I love this one. Are you by chance a fan of music?
I am.
Okay. Well, who are some of the artists you're listening to right now that is going through Kyle O'Brien's ears?
Oh man. Okay, so one of my absolute favorite artists is Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
Big Zach Bryan fan,
Okay.
and we're actually getting ready to go see Morgan Wallen in concert next Friday, I think. So those are probably the three that I'm listening to the most right now.
I have a teammate going to that, and she's pretty excited for that. So I've been hearing a lot about it. I'm sure there's more people going in our school. I'm only aware of one because it's in Indy, right?
Yes, yeah, it is.
Okay. So I mean that's for us, that's only like an hour and a half drive. So
Yep.
we're I'm sure we have more people going. I mean, it's close and even closer for you. It's like only what, an hour?
Just over an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
About an hour 15 or so.
Yeah. So this one's by far my favorite question I ask. If you could go back in time, tell young Kyle O'Brien one thing, not necessarily doesn't you can pick whenever that would be in the time frame, but if you can go back and tell young Kyle O'Brien one thing, what would that one thing be?
stop worrying so much. You're on the right track, and keep doing what you're doing. I think one of the things that you had mentioned, and I mentioned it as well, is wondering if you're supposed to be there. You always end up exactly where you're supposed to be, and so stop overthinking things, because I've been a classic overthinker and a classic worrier. Every step along the way here, you keep talking about how many different accomplishments there are, or how many times you take it to the next level, but the struggle was internally the same every single step of the way. So having future Kyle go back and tell past Kyle that may have eased his mind a little bit. However, maybe I needed all those worries to get me from point A to point B. I don't know, but I just think that'd be good advice.
I think that's something that's super good, and I love that answer. And that's one of the more common answers I say I get. I'm not calling you basic or anything at all by that, but but and that's one of the ones that I hear quite often. Well, thank you so much for hopping on tonight. You did an absolute amazing job, and I'm super excited to watch this one back. You did a fantastic job.
Well, thank you for having me. When your dad first sent me the text and if I'd be interested, and I heard from you. It's like I said, it's been fun to think about. It's been fun to plan, and this goes without saying, I've been the biggest fan of your dad and mom ever since I've known them, and it's been incredibly fun watching you grow up in your running career, but also watching all your interviews. So I'm very thankful to be a part of it, and just glad I got the opportunity to come here.
Absolutely. How could I not, right? You're like, I just keep going back to it. The resume is speaking for itself. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. And again, thank you for taking time out of your night, man.
All right, bud. We'll talk soon.
Bye.